Hello, welcome to my first ever podcast episode with a video. Pretty neat. I don't know how this is going to go. There's my left side, there's my right side. Okay, so it's been a while, or it's been a minute, as people like to say. I want to get right into it. I had an idea for this episode, and I thought, I gotta jump on this. I gotta jump on this while this idea is kind of fresh in my mind. So, as we know, people usually don't follow through with the desire to let go of things or to even go through things because of that decision tree. The thing that stands in the way is that decision tree. You pick something up, whether it's a paper, whether it's a $20,000 instrument that's been passed down to you for generations, whether it's a used toothbrush that has found its way in a drawer, right? Every single item demands of us that a decision be made. Do we hold on to it? Do we let it go? And the problem is that even if we have a gut instinctual reaction as to holding or letting go, as soon as that decision tree comes into our brain, we get flooded with emotions and with kind of facts or other pieces of information that I want to talk to you about today. Because those pieces of information, many of them are irrelevant. And so what I want to focus on with you to help you learn how to let go with ease, or at least how to go through the process, even if it isn't with ease initially, it's with your understanding that these are the elements that are coming into my brain that are making it harder for me. And these are the elements that I should pay attention to. And my division line is relevant and irrelevant. So I want to give you an example, okay? It's a very kind of basic example of something with irrelevant and relevant facts. Let's say I'm at a friend's house and the friend says, I'm kind of hungry. I'm going to make myself a peanut butter sandwich with banana and honey and sliced up banana and peanut butter. God, that sounds good, doesn't it? And the person makes the sandwich for herself, and she's about to bite into this peanut butter, banana, honey sandwich, and she says, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I say, what's the problem? You said you were really, you were hungry, and you were really in the mood for it. What could possibly be the problem? And she says, you know what? There are people in the world that have peanut allergies. I just can't get past that. I can't have the sandwich. And I'll say, I'm not quite sure I understand. You're compassionate. You're thinking about others who can enjoy the sandwich, but you yourself don't have an allergy. So why wouldn't you eat it? To which the person says, I just can't, too hard. So in my analogy here, my point is that while it is a fact that there are millions of people worldwide who have a peanut allergy, it is an irrelevant fact for this particular person who does not have a peanut allergy, for whom eating the sandwich is perfectly fine. So it's an example of she has an irrelevant fact in her mind, and it's preventing her from going through with something. Now, whether or not you like the analogy, I think you see what I might be getting at. Okay, here's an example where we have irrelevant facts and relevant facts as it pertains to a particular item that we might want to think about holding on to. So let's say you have a picture frame, okay? A picture frame. You're going through items and you see a picture frame that someone gifted to you at some point in the last 30 years. And it's never been used and it's just sitting in a box. So I might say, you're not using it and you've never used it and you don't really plan on using it. So this would be a perfect item. If it's in good condition, you could donate it, right? And the person says, yes, but I got it from my Aunt Jane. I'll feel too guilty. It's also lovely. It's lovely. It's not for me, but it's lovely. What if it actually is worth money? To which I'd say, well, if you really think there's a possibility that it's worth money, you can bring it to an antique dealer or bring it somewhere where they might know and they'll appraise it and you can make a decision from there. But let's rewind for a second. These are the kinds of thoughts that come into your mind, right? All of the different pieces. What I would say is irrelevant is that Aunt Jane got it for you. Now, I say it's irrelevant not to be cold-hearted. Yes, you love Aunt Jane loves you, but it's irrelevant to whether or not you should hold on to it. Why would somebody want to hold on to a picture frame? To use it, right? To use it, that's what it's for. To have a picture in it, to display a picture, or to maybe give it as a gift. I'm not really a big fan of regifting, but there's always a time and place for that. That's it. I mean, if you happen to know that there's someone else in the family who's waiting to receive it, there are always a bunch of different scenarios, right? The point is, if those scenarios don't apply and you simply have a gift from your Aunt Jane, whom you love, right, but you're not using and you've never used it, there's no need to hold on to it. Okay, so we want to break irrelevant from relevant fact. A relevant fact would be, this is a magnificent antique frame. I know a thing or two about antiques and I don't remember kind of looking at it, but this is absolutely, this is valuable. I don't just want to throw it out or I don't just want to donate it. I'm going to get it appraised, right? That's relevant. Not, well, maybe it's worth something. Maybe it's worth something is very different than, you know what? This is from the 1860s. It was purchased at an estate sale. I actually think it might be worth something. That's very different, right? So that's relevant to your decision as to what comes next. But Aunt Jane's giving it to you is irrelevant. The other piece that I had said where the person might say, oh, it's lovely, it's attractive, but it's not for me. So the fact that it might be lovely, whatever that means, right? The fact that somebody else might think that it's attractive or, worthy to display, that's irrelevant for you. Because if you liked it, if you wanted to display it, it would have been displayed. There are always ways to respond to this. You might say, well, at the time that I got it, I lived in a tiny studio apartment, and so I actually didn't have space for it. But now that I'm in a big home, I do have space for it. To which I'd say, great. If you want to use it, go for it. Put it out. But it's if you don't want to use it, if you haven't been using it, let it go. Let it go. So these are examples of irrelevant and relevant, right? Irrelevant and relevant. And this comes up with everybody and all of their decisions. So here's another thought that I had. What can you tell yourself when you are faced with it, right? You pick up something. I'm going to pick up something. This is a mug and I actually have tea in it right now. I'm going to take a little sip. It's got, you gotta love PG Tips black tea with some oat milk, or half and half. Let's say I pick this up, right, and I look at it and I say, yeah, I don't know. Should I hold on to it? I mean, I haven't used it in a whole year. I have a new tea set, and then what happens? So the thing that you first said was, I haven't used it. That's kind of the relevant fact here, right? If you haven't used it and a teacup is, well, to be used, that's the relevant fact that you need to use to pivot to make your decision. But what happens? But I used to love it. Oh my God, I remember when I was a young mom and I used to look forward to my cup of coffee every morning, and you go down memory lane and all of a sudden emotion comes in and hijacks the decision tree, right? Or you might say, ooh, I love holding this. God, I forgot how good it feels to hold it, right? And then you think, well, maybe I'll start using it again. Maybe I'll start using it again. But what would you say is most likely, right? Do you think you'll start using it again? It's possible. It's possible. But I think we say, maybe I'll start using it again. That's the voice of fear. That's the voice of the fear of letting go, of feeling bereft. So I think we say that because we're trying to protect ourselves from making a decision that we know is going to leave us feeling a little bit empty, even though we started the project to begin with because we're trying to unburden ourselves. We're trying to make our lives simpler and easier. We're trying to live a life that has possessions in it that speak to us, that we enjoy using, that make us feel good. And so an indication of whether or not something makes you feel good is, am I using it, right? Or is it displayed? Do I get pleasure when I look at it? That's an indication. So those are the kinds of things that happen. You might say, oh my God, I remember when I relied on this mug to wake me up every morning and I loved it and it was so wonderful, and you feel that. And there I'd press pause and I'd say, yes, yes. Live in that moment for a minute. Acknowledge it. Embrace it. Feel it. And as cheesy or wacky as it sounds, I personally do this sometimes when I'm ready to let something go and the feeling comes up in me of a memory. I acknowledge that memory and I say, I've actually said this. I've said, thank you, whatever it is. Thank you, teacup. If that seems absolutely wacko to you, don't. But my point is simply, acknowledge it. If you acknowledge it and take the moment to feel how that relationship once served you or how the item once served you, you will then be able to let it go because you've given a voice, you've given a space to that emotion of longing or nostalgia, whatever it might be, right? Instead of allowing it to take over and derail the process. And I can guarantee, by the way, just so I can say, if you didn't realize as you're going through your things that you came upon something that you adore with all your heart and there's no way you want to let it go, of course, don't pry it out of your hands, right? Hold on to it. This exercise is more about helping you figure out what questions to ask or what to do when these thoughts that derail or these feelings that come in as you're holding something, as you're looking at something, what to do when they come in and they flood you. Instead of having them derail the process and having you then put all the items back because Aunt Jane gave it to you, because it's lovely, but it's just not for me, but how could I throw out something that's so new and precious and whatever, and oh, I once used it and I can't possibly let it go because, and then what happens is the process gets closed down, and then you continue to walk through your house feeling the burden and the weight of all of this stuff. So this is all to say, it can be so helpful for you to remember in advance of the process that thoughts and emotions will come up and that you can be equipped to handle it, to feel it, and to still go back to which of these thoughts or which of these feelings are actually relevant and which ones may exist but are actually irrelevant, right? It's kind of like, and people used to say, oh, I actually didn't grow up with parents who said, people are starving in the world, you should finish your food. Thank God I didn't have that experience. It was more, you're the arbiter of your body. You stop when you want, you continue when you want, right? You make the decision. Only you know your body. But it's almost a similar thing. I understand why people say that, but as heartbreaking as it is, as heartbreaking a fact as it is that there are people in the world, maybe billions, who don't have enough to eat, it's not a relevant fact that should determine whether I should continue eating what's on my plate. It's irrelevant, right? So we can acknowledge it and say that is tragic. I'd like to do A, B, and C about it to help it, to decrease the problem of not enough food, of famine for people, for billions. But it doesn't really help me figure out whether I should have another bite of my steak or salad, right? So I hope this helped. It's really all about, keep it simple in your mind, right? It's about relevance and irrelevance. And if you can keep that dichotomy, that bifurcation in your head, literally when you pick something up, and it actually, I'm looking for something. This is actually really neat. This is, I don't know, this is, if I can pan it back, this is a Lego Paul McCartney creation that one of my sons made 2 years ago, I think. That's definitely relevant. Or I guess the fact that he's a huge McCartney fan is relevant to holding on to that. But why did I bring that up? I don't even remember. I don't know where I was going. I was just looking for an item to pick up. Yes, if you pick up an item, right, immediately feel the feelings, acknowledge the thoughts, and say, wait a second, I'm pressing pause. Is this relevant or irrelevant? It's relevant? Great, let's hold on to that in order to help me make a decision. Another feeling comes in, nostalgia. I see you, nostalgia. I feel you. I respect you. I validate you. Is this relevant or irrelevant to this decision? Right? Okay. You got this, guys. You got this. I hope this was helpful. I will see you next time.